the whole thing. Right.
Go on.
Less than an hour to go. So it's less than an hour to go before Finance Minister of India, Nirmala Sitharaman, presents Interim Budget 2024, her sixth consecutive budget, the fourth paperless budget. We are seeing 10 years of Modi-nomics already as we count down to the general elections in April, May 2024. So what will be the guiding lights in the Interim Budget 2024? Will it give a major push to growth? Will it walk the tight path between fiscal consolidation and growth? Will it follow the fiscal prudence that we've been seeing over the past few years, especially post-COVID-19? Also, what is the message for the global economy, for the export sector? What's the message for Make in India, for defense, for women's empowerment? These are things that we'll be watching out for. Our analysis on Interim Budget 2024 continues, and we are counting down to that moment as well when the Finance Minister will get up and take out the India-made tablet from a red Bahi Khata and read out the budget for all of us. Expectations are high, even though we know that there may not be spectacular announcements because this is just an interim budget, not a full-fledged one, which will be presented later in July after the elections. I'm Unman Bhattacharya. With me is my colleague, Anil.
Well, good morning, people in India and across the world. GYAN, that's the acronym used. Garib, that's the poor. Y stands for youth. A stands for Annadata, that's the farmer. And N stands for Nari, women. Four focus areas that the government has zeroed in on. The interim budget, lots of expectations on is it going to be a big benefit, especially for the salaried middle class? Are we looking at some kind of tax deductions, some tax slabs that are going to be moved? All this and a lot more that we discuss over the next 1 hour. The big build-up. This is the channel which gives you all the news as it breaks on budget day. You can track us on our Twitter handle, on social media, and we are going to deliberate on every aspect that is important to the common man, that is important to a viewer in this edition of the big build-up to the budget day or the interim budget.
So let's get started with the headlines. India's Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman is set to present the interim budget. It is the last budget before the nation's parliamentary elections due in April-May this year.
US State Department says US-India drone deal holds significant potential for strategic technology cooperation.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says a UN agency for Palestinians must shut down as Israeli warplanes strike Gaza.
Well, the countdown to the union interim budget has started. India's Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman will present the interim budget 2024 in the lower house of parliament at 11 a.m. That's IST, 5:30 a.m. GMT.
It will be a sixth budget presentation as Finance Minister and will be the last budget of the current Lok Sabha. Like the previous three full union budgets, interim budget 2024 will also be delivered in a paperless form. The full union budget will be presented once the new government is elected following the general elections, which are due in April and May this year.
Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman, carrying the budget tablet, arrived at Parliament a short while ago. She will present the interim budget in the lower house of Parliament at 11 a.m. That's IST and 5:30 a.m. GMT.
Meanwhile, the red Bahi Khata has been spotted, the big red envelope that you see there. Union Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman and her team posed for photographs outside the Ministry of Finance this morning. In Sitharaman's hand was the iconic red envelope carrying the interim union budget 2024 in a tab or digital format. Meanwhile, amid an unusual bout of January rain, copies of the interim budget arrived in Parliament this morning.
Well, the Chief Economic Advisor to the Government of India, V. Anant Nageshwar, in an exclusive conversation with DD India, tells that the Indian economy remains in good shape and will continue to grow healthier due to measures taken by the government over the last 9 years.
In the previous 6 years before the pandemic, several important structural reforms have taken place. India cleaned up the balance sheets of the financial sector, especially public sector banks. The Indian government invested in public infrastructure, both physical and digital infrastructure. It enabled financial inclusion with this PM Jan Dhan Yojana program, and 55% of the new account holders are women. And then India also ensured that the digital infrastructure evolved that allowed MSMEs to be able to access finance and also tap into newer markets. So I think a combination of all these various immediate responses to the pandemic and the energy situation arising out of the conflict in Ukraine and the delayed impact of the long-term structural reforms. I should have also added the implementation of GST, the Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code, and continued focus on the ease of doing business. All these things have kept the Indian economy in good shape and in a good position to continue to grow healthily, not only as it is doing right now, but also in the years ahead.
The gross goods and services tax, or GST revenue collected in the month of January 2024 is out. It is over 1,72,000 crore rupees, which shows a 10.4% year-on-year growth over the revenue collected in January last year, that is in January 2023. Notably, this is the second highest monthly collection ever and is the third month in the current financial year in which more than 1.7 lakh crore rupees have been mopped up. The cumulative gross GST collection from April 2023 to January 2024 witnessed an impressive 11.6% year-on-year growth, mopping up 16.69 lakh crore rupees.
Well, the Chief Economic Advisor to the Government of India, V. Anant Nageshwaran, said that India has improved its economy through digital infrastructure, structural reforms and business ease, including the introduction of GST, which has facilitated MSME access to finance and new markets.
That their GST collections are growing faster than they used to in the pre-GST era, and it is also facilitating economic efficiency. Trucks are able to travel more distance. There is at least a 45 to 50% increase in the distance covered by trucks. Logistics costs have come down because of the abolition of octroi posts and one single tax rate, etc. So the efficiency gains of GST are flowing through. That is, of course, an indirect tax reform measure. In the direct tax measure, the government has given people the option to choose, and the corporates as well, to choose between the old tax regime and the new tax regime. They can, for individuals especially, they can move back and forth between the two regimes for every financial year. Therefore, they can choose the most optimal tax payment, most optimal tax regime that suits them. And there are also many tax administration measures taken to make payment of taxes and interaction with the tax department as non-intrusive and as smooth as possible. Much more can be done with respect to angel taxes or capital gains tax rationalization or further direct tax reforms, etc. But India today, especially for businesses, has one of the most reasonable tax structures in the world, and therefore considerable tax reform measures. Of course, the most notable one being GST introduction. Considerable tax reform measures, including tax administration reform measures, have been taken in the last 10 years.
Let's get perspective now from our reporters joining us. Dibendu Mondal joins us from FICCI in Delhi and Shyama Mishra from Mumbai. Dibendu, I'll come to you first. What is the sentiment of the India Inc. less than 50 minutes to go before Finance Minister stands up to present the interim budget? What is it that India Inc. is looking forward to?
Yeah. Well, Munmun, this is an interim budget, and the India industry leaders are, of course, very well aware of this fact. And just a few days back, Nirmala Sitharaman, the Finance Minister of India, also said that this is perhaps the interim budget, and there could not be, there could perhaps be not many announcements. But however, having said this, the industry is hopeful that there could be some announcements in the green sector, the green energy sector. sector. There could be announcements in giving SOPs to the infrastructure sector, to the startup sector, and also to the railway infrastructure building. Because remember, these are some of the key sectors that this government has been continuously focusing on. Railways is something that the government has been continuously focusing on in redevelopment and building of different new infrastructure in the railway sector. Also in the infrastructure sector, the government is pushing towards building of new roads, building of more infrastructure and amenities for the welfare of the people. So these are some of the key sectors where the government could pump in more money in order to get, build India more stronger. Also, the corporate sector is perhaps looking at some SOPs that the finance minister could announce in this budget. Also, there are many buzz around the fact that there could be something in the goodie bag that Nirmala Sitharaman is carrying for the middle class. Remember, this is a budget which is just ahead of the election, and many a times in the past we have seen that the governments tend to give many things to the middle class as well as to in fact elevate poverty. So the agricultural sector is also something that the government perhaps would be looking at to incentivize these sectors. But also the green sector. Let me also remind our viewers that the government recently announced a massive solar power implementation project. So you can expect some SOPs being given out in the green energy sector in order because remember the government's focus is also transformation towards green energy. So these are some of the key sectors that we are looking at where some new announcements and major announcements could be made.
Okay, let's now head across to the financial capital of Mumbai, where Shama Mishra joins us. Shama, good morning. Shama, what are the markets looking forward to? Reduction in STT is something that they look forward to. Capital gain tax is another issue that's been, spoken about for long. Are they, anything more, especially when it comes to expectations from the interim budget, from the financial capital of India?
Shama is not connected.
Shama is still not connected with us.
Yes, but those were visuals that we were earlier seeing of Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman heading to the cabinet meeting there in the new Parliament building, because as per convention, there's always a cabinet meeting just ahead of the budget presentation. The budget is passed by the Union Cabinet before it is presented to the country in the lower house of Parliament. So those visuals that we were flashing to you earlier were of the finance minister heading into that meeting. But earlier we saw that the finance minister headed straight from, these are visuals of the finance minister flanked by the two ministers of state in finance carrying the red Bahi Khata, or the red huge envelope. This contains a Made in India tab. This is the fourth year that this is going to be a paperless digital budget, and the finance minister's sixth consecutive budget. So India has been going digital. This is an indication of how digital India is doing. Earlier, there were reams and reams of paper that the Union Finance Minister would read off, but now that era has changed. India is becoming a digital economy, and India's digital public infrastructure, or DPI, is something that is being adopted the world over. And I believe Shama Mishra is joining us. Shama, the markets as of now seem to be looking up, both the Sensex and Nifty. So how have they reacted to the budget, and what are their expectations from, say, the capital gains tax front and other fronts?
Well, Munmun, you've rightly mentioned both Sensex and Nifty are trading in green, and they are expecting that the announcements or the policies that would be announced, although there will not be a major change or impactful policies that will be announced, but markets are keenly, the heavyweight of the markets are keenly watching all the announcements that will begin from 11 a.m. onwards, when Finance Minister will start giving the announcements of the interim budget. Apart from that, we are knowing the fact that the salaried class of people, the middle class people, they are expecting, you've already mentioned about the tax regime. So they are expecting some, some or the other attractiveness over there, increased standard deduction limit so that they'll get more benefits of the tax. Apart from that, let's shift our focus to the experts, to the industry experts who are expecting, we've spoken to a host of other sectors, and they have mentioned that although this is an interim budget, but India does have an opportunity over here to make significant changes through their policies, even though in the interim budget. So starting with, you've already mentioned about digital India, how are India's impact or India's thrust on digitalization, on DPI has been, high over the years, and India has been known one of the strongest DPI. So we understand that the people, the experts from the sector of the digital infrastructure, they are expecting that the infrastructure would be made more robust. There should be more, rebates over there, also more attractiveness also on security front. There should be more increased policies. Apart from there, we are also talking about how our environment is, keenly looked after now that the policies are driven environmental friendly. So there'll be some, expectations around that corner as well, where the resources should be distributed properly. Environmental friendly policies would be announced, something which will be financially sustainable, something which will be environmentally sustainable. All these policies are expected from the area of this particular one. EV sector is one section where, there's a lot of expectations happening, even from the interim budget, because every day we are seeing more and more number of cars, more and more number of two-wheelers, all EV coming on the road, and because of that, the infrastructure, the charging or the other infrastructure needs to be made robust. So there also a lot of, expectations are happening. We are also talking about the tourism industry. Tourism, because Mumbai is also one of the places where a large number of tourists come, and that is why a large number of, the agencies are also here. So speaking to them, they have mentioned that they are hoping that there will be various announcements for promoting tourism, for boosting tourism, like announcements for new ports, announcement for new airports, terminals, and all these announcements they are expecting. So by and large, everyone knows that this is an interim budget, no major policy changes, but everyone is expecting that there will be something that can fall, that can come into their kitty, that they'll benefit from.
Okay, Shama, you made a mention about DPI, you made a mention about tourism. Do you somewhere see the rupee card now getting, further impetus and a push, especially for that when it comes to DPI, across platforms for tourists to make, better use of, in the tourist spots, better use of it to gain more momentum and more purchase?
Yes, definitely. Starting off with, last year, we did see that there was, with G20, there came in a lot of changes. And with this, we were talking about DPI. We also had the working group for DPI, for digital infrastructure. They have spoken a lot, and they have made a lot of, substantial actionable decisions over there. We also saw that the people, the delegates who had come from all the countries, from the member countries, invited countries, they were given a chance to use UPI. So we understand that UPI is now becoming popular, it's becoming famous in other countries as well as in India with the foreigners. So we understand the craze of UPI, and with that rupee card or other other facilities that the Indian government or the financial sector is providing to the people who are coming into various states or India from abroad, they get a chance to become local and have a hands-on experience how to trade in the local rupee, how to trade in the local, with the ease of digital infrastructure. So all this is making a huge impact, and we are expecting the experts from this sector also are expecting that be it in the proper robust infrastructure of the digital payment, the digital lending, all this would be taken close care of. All this would be also taken care of when the announcements are done, because we are now also seeing something in the sector of AI. So not just the digital public infrastructure, digital payment, but also through AI, you can have a lot of benefits, and giving a boost to it, giving further growth to it would also be something that the IT sector or the digital sector would be closely watching it for.
Right, let's get more inputs now. Anibrata is joining us from Kolkata. Anibrata, what is Kolkata looking forward to from this budget? We know that even rail budget is part of the finance budget. Over the past several years, we've seen that change happen. So what are the expectations that the state of West Bengal, the Kolkatans have from the budget?
Actually, as you know, people in general, they want that the prices of the necessary commodities get reduced. That is the overall expectation from the budget. But you know what the chamber have largely lauded the role of the government, because only yesterday notification was there that the customs duty on the different segments of the mobile will be reduced to from 15 to 10%, and on raw materials it will be to 0. So to encourage the mobile manufacturing in India, it certainly it will give a big boost. And not only that, the industry corner are expecting that as the tax collection has surpassed the budget's estimation, so this time they are expecting that the exemption limit to be extended. That is the overall, and not only that, they are also in need that government will give some of the take some of the measures on the end of the GST and all these areas. So we have Ajita Rai Chaudhuri, who is chairman of the Economic Affairs Committee of BCCI, said, as you know, the government is giving impetus particularly to the infrastructure, to AI and information technology areas. So what's your expectation from the government from this? Although this is an interim budget, but what's the overall expectation you have?
We are very optimistic about the budget. For the simple reason, the finance minister, whatever she has said up to now, and the economic review, very clearly said India is at the top in terms of growth globally. And also she has pointed out that she will keep in mind the youth, the women, the farmers.
Exactly.
And apart from that, as you said, infrastructure and manufacturing.
Yeah.
What else we can expect? Yeah. And all these points, she is very clear about this, that whatever budget she will plan, we expect that she has all these important pillars in mind. And that will keep India growing ahead of others. And that's exactly the chamber wishes. And I'm quite optimistic about it too.
So actually, this time what we find, as it has been said, that this budget will be focus-oriented budget. So what's your overall expectation in these areas? Because if the focus is given to the segmented areas, that are the need of the hour.
The overall focus is growth. Yeah. We cannot lose the momentum.
Yeah.
And the second issue is, we have already given a lot of stress on the manufacturing. We cannot go back on that. And that requires stress on infrastructure, not leaving out the poorer people and the other, like women and the youth. And that's a balanced approach any country should take. Growth with equality and justice. That's exactly the finance minister has in mind. That's what we expect.
As you know, sir, as the chamber always have their mind that the government take measures on this tax front. So what do you say of this?
Common people simply expect that the standard deduction will go up. But already last year, there is an indication that we will gradually move towards the new regime. The old regime will be gradually replaced. And we expect that there will be just one uniform regime in future. And this time, although it's an interim budget, that will be continued. And there may be a little here and there, a little reduction in customs duty. And maybe, I don't expect a very great change in the income tax rate right now. But overall, moving towards the new regime is the thing which we can expect from Chamber's point of view.
Right, Anibrata.
Yeah.
Anibrata, getting a sense of what the industry captains there in Kolkata really want from interim budget 2024. Stay with us. A quick word we'll get from Dibyendu before we come to the guest in the studio who's been waiting for quite some time. So Dibyendu, coming to you on what does India Inc. really expect as far as a push or impetus to new and emerging sectors is concerned? Semiconductors, for instance.
Well, of course, Munmun, you know, the India industry sector is perhaps, you know, looking at major SOPs. In fact, some SOPs in the IT sector, as well as you rightly said, in the semiconductor sector, and not just this, you know, the information technology sector is something, and in fact, manufacturing in this sector is something that the government is perhaps looking at, and we have seen in the last couple of years a lot of companies have set up their manufacturing unit in India, and to give more push and impetus towards the manufacturing industry, the government could perhaps announce some SOPs for these companies in terms of rebate or in terms of some sort of tax holidays for setting up these manufacturing companies. But as we also heard from the member of the CII, you know, there could not, I mean, there is unlikely to be any major announcement in the sectors, especially in the tax sector, because remember, this is just an interim budget. But also, Munmun, in the MSME sector, the government is focusing on setting up manufacturing plants in smaller scale in Tier 1, in fact in Tier 2 and Tier 3 cities. So the MSME sector could get some sort of benefits in the budget, which is likely to be announced in a short while from now, and we are just minutes away from the budget being tabled in the Lok Sabha. So, you know, the manufacturing sector, the MSME sector is something that the government is looking at to give a push and to give an impetus towards production in India. The government's primary focus, remember, is self-reliance, make in India. So these are some of the key focuses that the government will keep in mind.
Devendra, hold your thoughts. These are still photographs that have been received from the President's house in New Delhi. In India, we say, "Muh meetha karna chahiye" at the start of a good day. So this is really an auspicious start where you sweeten the mouth ahead of any big day. So this is very true to Indian tradition and culture. And we saw the President doing that and sweetening in a way the start of the day just ahead of the presentation of the interim budget here in India. And there have been a host of meetings since the very morning. This is the budget team and a photo opportunity that was had in the morning, the President of India, Draupadi Murmu, being flanked by the budget team. This includes, of course, Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman. There are 2 Ministers of State. Then there are all the secretaries in the Ministry of Finance. As the Chief Economic Advisor in the Finance Ministry, the budget team actually plays a very, very critical and fundamental role to the whole budget-making process. They are quarantined for days. And when the start of the quarantine process happens, then there's a halwa that is a sweet dish which is very delectable, is made for all, and that is the start then of the quarantine process, and that carries on for days, the quarantine that is. And today, thinking out of the box, President Draupadi Murmu offering sweets to Finance Minister before the big day. This is the interim budget, a lot of expectations of the people. At the same time, we know spectacular announcements are unlikely. There's a hint to that effect that has come in from India's Finance Minister as well. But nevertheless, since this is an election year, there are people, especially those in the middle class, and Gyan, as my colleague Anil was referring to, with focus on poor, on farmers and youth and women, looking forward to some SOPs from the budget. We know that this government is not known for populism, Anil.
True.
But at the same time, there are ways in which the government reaches out to those in need. And for instance, women farmers or Nari Shakti, a lot is being expected on that front.
Well, exactly. You know, the President extending her best wishes before the Finance Minister heads to the lower house of Parliament to present the budget. Before that, the cabinet meeting at this point of time taking place. Once the cabinet meeting is over at around 11 a.m. sharp, we're going to see the Finance Minister present a 4th paperless and a 6th budget there, and vote on account budget that is going to be presented by the Finance Minister. Well, to deliberate on what we can expect there from the interim budget, joining us in the studios is a financial expert, Rahul Gupta, joining us this morning to take these deliberations forward. Rahul, good morning. Welcome to this special broadcast here on DD India. Let me begin by asking, is the Finance Minister today in the interim budget going to do a tightrope walking? On one end, keep that fiscal deficit under control. On the other hand, give that infrastructure push that's needed the most.
Yeah, absolutely right. With the interest rates increasing in international market, the markets internationally are not that great. So it's important that Indian market remains good. At the same time, fiscal deficit doesn't go that high, that it deteriorates our rupee rate and other aspects internationally. Whereas manufacturing is important in any case. Our domestic consumption needs to be given an impetus, whether by reduced income taxes, increased slabs with higher disposable income in the hands of people at large, maybe by increase of deduction levels. That's what is expected, because we are very uninsured as a country. So it's important to increase the deduction for insurance so that people are insured. So by virtue of increasing disposable income, aligning it to the right avenues is also important. Manufacturing is critical right now because internationally the competition is higher with the increasing interest rates, and our interest rates are still competitive. So it's a time to align ourselves to the supply chains. China already facing the issues of recession into their real estate market is affecting across on all the boards. So it's important to use this opportunity by virtue of increasing the impetus to manufacturing. It can be done in 3 ways. So one is that there is the Government of India started in 2019, a 5-year window that whosoever starts new company with manufacturing, the taxes will be low to 15%. So that sunset is getting over on 31st March 24.
Do you expect an extension?
I expect an extension on that, because we still is the opportunity for us to replace the supply chain from China to us. So it's important that such exemption is increased. At the same time, government started a new export scheme called Mover, wherein the businessmen anywhere across the country can set up bonded warehouses for manufacturing. They can import raw material. They can sell it easily to domestic market as well as exports. So that's the only scheme for exporters wherein you have your own autonomy, you have your own decision whether you want to supply to domestic market or exports. A lot of ease in that scheme. Whereas much people haven't entered the scheme has started doling on ground. People have started entering into it. There is some kind of attraction which I'm expecting this year by Government of India, by Finance Ministry for the Mover scheme. Another aspect is SEZs. Exports, SEZs, there's a huge investment of country into SEZs ranging around 6 lakhs to 7 lakh crores, wherein there was a tax exemption which went off in the year 2021-22. So maybe government brings up some sort of other kind of benefit for the exporters already present in SEZs. There was a proposal going on since last 3-4 months, wherein duty forgone concept was introduced. So on one hand, we have our SEZs who supply to India at the duty on the goods what is released in India. Whereas on the other hand, there are a lot of FTAs which have been entered by Government of India in last 1 year.
More are being negotiated, for instance.
More are being negotiated further. So there is a huge demand from the side of SEZ units to align them to the international suppliers, either by FTA or by...
But since this is a space that you've been very, very closely looking at for years together, there are complexities, aren't there, which our Chief Economic Advisor also talks about when he says that there's so much focus now on friend-shoring, on onshoring, and hence expanding exports is difficult, more difficult than it used to be perhaps. What do you think?
See, FTA is an opportunity. You give an ease to other person and you get an ease to access his market as well. So it's for you.
Do you expect incentives for exporters?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So once you've entered a lot of FTAs all around, you've got friends all around. So it's important you tap their businesses.
Right.
That'll happen only when,
and when India becomes the one in China plus one, then it helps.
So we are in a very good situation as to that. We've got friends all around. At the same time, China is facing issues regarding demand, etc. So we have an opportunity to enter. So any impetus now will get more benefits towards exports as compared to what all have been done earlier. Because substitution is easier. You have better duty structures for people to import from you. Last FTA has entered UAE. So UAE is a great trade partner for us now. And there is huge supplies to Africa, which is taking place from UAE per se. So for India to tap African market, UAE is an important trade destination. So wherein UAE has given a lot of...
under SEPA, you mean, the Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement. Yeah.
Wherein UAE has given a lot of duty exemptions to us. So if we supply to them for further supplying it to Africa, it's an opportunity. The way we are able to import easily from UAE, same way we are able to export easily to UAE. For example, in jewelry exports, earlier there was a 5% duty which was there in UAE when you import from India. So they have removed that duty structure in the same SEPA agreement. So friendship is helping us to for letting them enter inside. That's what economic advisor said. There'll be more supplies from them, more imports, but at the same time, it's an opportunity to us also in the two-way method. So I believe government will be making a push towards exports, either by giving a benefit to mover scheme per se, in specific, or in SEZ scheme. There is a concept called road tap. So wherein you get a DT as duty exporter, you get benefit while you export from DTA. It's some kind of incentivization regarding the taxes what you've borne in the domestic goods. Such benefit is not there in SEZ. So I believe they'll be replicating the same benefit to SEZ exporters. So government is mindful of that. I believe government will give export a push for sure.
You know, there was another scheme, the market access initiative that was there. Do you see, you know, that getting an added impetus? Because we're looking at exports hitting numbers, record numbers by 2030. Do you see the possibility of that happening?
So that scheme only was rechristened. So MEIS and SEIS, wherein manufacturing exporters used to get incentive and SEIS service sector used to get incentive. That's been renamed as ROTAP. So in such situation, ROTAP could not be implemented on SEZs.
Okay.
So that's what I'm saying. The similar scheme would now be implemented to SEZ. Next 1 year is a good situation unless until USA reduces the interest rates. So till the time US interest rates are higher, those who are being funded in dollars as compared to us are at a marginal disadvantageous situation. So we should use this opportunity to make supplies and to enter into supply chains where we are not. Substitution is a great opportunity right now in export market.
Okay.
Yes, but should one be glad that the Indian economy is extremely resilient despite the global economic shocks that we are seeing, and perhaps that gives more elbow room to have more resources to implement the Gyan focus area, the channel has been talking about, to focus on poor, on farmers, on women, as well as youth. So do you think that there's really a lot of elbow room that this government has, given that direct tax collections, indirect tax collections, GST, corporate tax collections, income tax filers, the tax base overall is expanding?
See, the population quality improving is leading to improvement in economy on a macro level. And resilience is by virtue of people adding into the income pyramid. By virtue of that, we are still very resilient. And government is very mindful of opening up also. I'm realizing government has allowed rupee to be traded internationally, as in now my suppliers can be paid through rupee, now my exporters, my customers can pay me rupee. So this phased opening up is keeping us resilient. At the same time, our currency being accepted internationally, because since there were sanctions to 2-3 economies since the war between Ukraine and
Rupee-dirham trade has been happening, for instance.
Direct currencies have come into the picture.
And, currency swap arrangements.
So earlier we were all exporting in US dollars, so anybody whom we were trading with, he had to buy dollars to supply it to give it to us as a customer. So now there are cross-currency direct rates. This really improves for the customer, for the quotation of price, something very basic.
And even UPI has been adopted in various countries, France being one of them.
UPI is leading to general consumption on a macro level. B2B transactions are not that frequent in UPI. I'm expecting some kind of change wherein my customer sitting in France can easily pay me off through a UPI transaction. So there'll be no more sending a telegraphic transfer and getting a receipt from the bank in the next 2 days. That kind of a period will shorten up, I believe.
Okay, let's once again head back to where all the action is, Parliament, where we got our correspondent Vikas Harthi joining us, also Anibrito there from Kolkata, and we've got our correspondents across the length and breadth of the country. But let's first head to Vikas, who's there with us. Vikas, good morning. We also got Shama there from Mumbai. Vikas, you know, that's where all the action is, Parliament. You know, a few minutes from now, we're going to see the finance minister present the vote on account. Expectations there from, you know, parliamentarians that you meet. What are they expecting from this particular budget, purely in terms of benefits and also otherwise?
Good morning, Anil. So right now the cabinet was going on just few minutes before Finance Minister arrived at the Parliament, and as you know that this budget is passed by the cabinet, then Finance Minister will give her budget speech at 11 a.m. And as far as the issues of MPs are concerned, most of the MPs are of the view that government has already have been implementing several welfare schemes, and the funds allocated for them are though quite enough, but they expect that some more funds will be allocated to those social welfare schemes. And as we are also aware that it's an interim budget, so Finance Minister is not going to make very big announcements, but certainly she will give an outlook or a kind of vision for the next full-fledged budget. So there will be the speech of the Finance Minister will certainly include those areas which will be given priority in a full-fledged budget, which will come after a few months. It's an interim budget. Vote and account will have limited announcements, as we are aware that there will be no much change in the tax slabs or standard deductions. Not much changes are expected. In fact, Finance Minister herself said that she is not going to make major big announcements. But again, whatever she says today in the Parliament will also reflect the what will be the future course of our economy. Time and again, Prime Minister has reiterated that very soon we are going to be the third largest economy, and the social welfare schemes are quite important for that. In fact, there has been much thrust upon creating a digital public infrastructure, and we are the largest. India has the largest digital public infrastructure as of now. So, what are the expectations from the MPs? We will all know in detail when the discussion will start. Once the motion of thanks on President's address will be completed, then we will see debate and discussion on Finance Minister's budget speech, and certainly at that point in time, MPs will give their specific views on the announcements made by Finance Minister today.
Right, Vikas, we'll keep coming back to you for more updates, also to garner some reactions to the budget after it is presented. Anibrata, coming to you. West Bengal is a state where infrastructure creation is important in the context of, say, the Bharat Mala scheme, that is port-led infrastructure. So if you could tell us what are the expectations of West Bengal from, say, port-led infrastructure, other kinds of infrastructure. There are several economic corridors which are to be built there. So in that context, what are the expectations?
Yeah, expectations are all around, because as the people are expecting that this will be encompassing budget, and as Indian economy is showing a steady, growth, and transition is taking place overall in all other areas. We had talked with experts in different fields, particularly the education field, the hospitality area. Almost all of them want that the GST rate be reduced, because what the education experts are here from the chamber saying, they are demanding that if the students get the education loan at a much lower rate, then it will help them to avail it in further. So that is the area. In the hospitality sector, they are of need that the exemption in different fields that are to be given. In equally, as you say, the Bharatmala project and the infrastructure project that government is largely giving focus, and all these, at the same time, what we see that the government is aligning with the private sectors, and as it is being done in all areas, starting from the health to hospitality, from all peripheries of the economic activities. So they want that somehow or other this GST rate should be revised, and it will be lowered. That will help the people in general and the industry particularly.
Okay, let's also head across to Mumbai, where Shama joins us. Shama, purely from a market perspective, what are the market experts, expecting from this particular interim budget?
An interim budget, and markets know that it's an interim budget, and looking at the performance currently, they know that there'll be no major significant changes that will be done starting at 11 a.m. When she starts announcing the interim budget. But there said again, we also know for the fact that the heavyweights, like the Reliance, L&T and other companies, they would also be keenly or closely watching the entire happening, and with that the investors or the intraday traders would also be closely watching all these actions, what sector specific announcements would be happening, so that they can have their hands on the benefits as that happens. So we understand that the government is also giving a thrust on more and more number of people coming in and Sensex and Nifty are at all-time high, and we are also expecting that Nifty can smoothly, cross the mark of 22,000 after today's announcement, because it will be majorly on expected lines. The major expectation is that there'll be no major expectation, and that is what the market already knows. But given the fact that this is an election year, they are expecting that there'll be some lucrative announcements going on, and that also would be closely watched by the markets. But yes, we said again that both Sensex and Nifty are trading in green, and as we've already mentioned that this year we are expecting that both Sensex and Nifty will touch or cross more number of record highs. Back to you.
Right, we leave it at that. Shyama Mishra, thank you for joining us. Anivrata, thanks for bringing us inputs. So from Mumbai and Kolkata, there were two correspondents who would join us. Let's go back to Vikas Sarthi to get some sense, just minutes to go before the presentation of the interim budget in Parliament. Vikas is in New Parliament, where the interim budget is going to be presented. Vikas, since this is an interim budget, if you could tell us if there are, high expectations from different classes really, or across the board as far as the political corridors are concerned from various political parties, or are expectations tempered because this is just an interim budget?
Right, Moon. So not major announcements are expected, but again, as I was saying earlier, that the speech will be very important of Finance Minister, since she will underline the future expectations from Indian economy, what industry can expect from the government, and what government wants industry and business to further go ahead with meeting the goal of making India the third largest economy in the world. So it is going to be a very important address. It will further give an idea that since the government is very confident that it is going to be in the power for the third time, and the next full-fledged budget will be given by the Modi government. So you may get an idea of what kind of budget it would be, what are the expectations of a common man, since we are already in an election year. So there will be some announcements that government is intended to increase spending on social welfare schemes, but right now it cannot be done since it's an interim budget. All these things can be mentioned in the budget speech as well. So it is quite expected that it will be a pupil-friendly budget, a pro-pupil budget. Though there are some constraints, we expect that there will be no major announcements. But again, you can get an idea of what will be the future course of the government for making India the third largest economy in the world. India is now very close to touch the $5 trillion economy, and there is a much thrust on making Startup India schemes like Startup India. How much funds can be given further to these startups? Now we have the largest number of startups throughout the world. When this government came into the power in 2014, there were almost 400 or 500 startups there, and now it has crossed the a figure of more than 1 lakh. So it's a staggering figure, and maybe government and further announce that it is going to fund these startups in the future as well.
Okay, Vikas, let me just tweak that question a bit. This is election year, as you mentioned. So is there a tightrope walking between a populist and a pragmatic vote on account?
Certainly, Anil, there will be announcements which will be pro-public, which will be pro-poor, you can say, since Prime Minister, in his opening remark, when he addressed the media, he clearly said that our government has a focus on some specific areas, particularly women empowerment, pro-poor policies, and we have seen in the past as well that the government is providing free ration for almost now 85 crore families, 85 crore people. So these kind of announcements have already been made in the past, and we expect that in the future also government's thrust will be on social welfare schemes further. The social welfare schemes cannot be ignored, though even we speak about making India the third largest economy, but the main issue is that unless we make our consumer powerful enough to consume these products which are being provided by these startups, so they are also a very important aspect. They are a very important part of making India $5 trillion economy and making India the third largest economy in the world. So there will be certainly much trust upon social welfare scheme in the interim budget as well.
Okay, we leave it there. Thank you. Appreciate you joining us there live. That's where all the action is. We're going to come back across the day for more inputs from your end.
Yes, so Mr. Gupta, this is an interim budget, but the government can still look ahead. And we've generally seen the government looking ahead to the next few decades. Do you expect some sort of policy guidance for maybe the next decade or the next decade or two in the interim budget?
So government has completed 10 years and is getting into the new election. So government would like to give its mindset regarding the future. Other than election, it's the economic and financial things which also government has to project to the people at large, that what are they thinking about it. So I believe government has done integrating with international other countries, economies, and by making easier path between them and us. Earlier there was a silos as to currency, as to the goods movement even. That has been given a good push. I believe next government will give its mindset as to ease of movement. There are countries in Southeast Asia where the cargo movement is 4 to 5 times than us. As of now, it's all been impetus on remanufacturing and supplying. Since last 4-5 years, since FTWZ and mover has come up, it is seeming that government is also giving its mindset towards trading. That we being in Southeast Asia and Southeast Asia being a big consumer in terms of numbers, and we have been focusing on selling our own manufactured goods only without coupling it with the other trading goods. So with the trading coming along with the manufacturing by mover scheme and by FTWZ, I believe government would start telling exporters and manufacturers that don't sell just your product by manufacturing, pick it up with the other products, integrated products, and increase exports by virtue of value addition income by virtue of trading also. Lately, it's been visible. So I believe government would make it clear. As of now, it had been just bringing up the schemes for trading. But now it'll integrate the taxes in such a way that an exporter who is getting exemption by virtue of manufacturing and selling would also be able to get income tax and indirect tax exemptions, qua trading part even. For example, if you generally import any product in India, you have to pay IGST and custom duties, which is available for manufacturers as exemption, but not primarily for traders as such. I am seeing that it will be integrating both, and there will be exemptions for direct taxes as well as indirect taxes for people to trade goods and make incomes. This we learned by virtue of various FTAs we've done in the past. Australian FTA is giving that picture. British FTA, which Indian and UK FTA, which is there already in negotiation. It's seeming that government is negotiating the FTAs in such a way that they don't only focus on own manufactured goods, they focus on trading goods also. For example, Korea CEPA is not primarily giving exemptions to Korean or our counterpart for the products which we manufacture per se, even if the integration of the goods are there by virtue of, buying any value-added product from another international market and integrating it into our own goods, then they have given benefits to both these sides by a concept called CTA, change in the heading, by value-adding the goods. Similar things are adding up. So I see that the numbers growing from here, government is realizing that it will not only be our own manufactured goods, as well as integrating traded goods, which will improve the market and improve the customer ease. As of now, if somebody buys from us and is buying a particular product, and for his final product, he needs to integrate more parts into it, which he's buying from other countries, maybe Vietnam, maybe Taiwan.
So basically, when we look ahead, you're looking at greater integration between trade and goods and services.
Yeah. The numbers here on would need that. And as of now, the taxes benefit are not there for traded goods. So I believe that this budget would start bringing those things on document, and the government will give a way ahead that the numbers, 5 trillion economy will not move in isolation by a target. It needs to be integrated with some important decisions. So I see government in the next 5 years, wherein government is setting its election agenda in today's date, would start rolling those concepts through today's budget. If not in the numbers, at least with the statement, at least with the mindset reflection that what is it they are thinking for growth from here on.
Okay. Shifting focus to the common man in particular, affordable housing has been spoken about for long. Do you see some kind of vision that this particular vote on account would put, especially when it comes to affordable, housing for, every man to have a roof on his head?
credit is very important for affordable housing. Even if the houses are cheaper in affordable housing, where in a lot of state governments, especially Rajasthan and Haryana, have been putting a lot of focus on affordable housing. How they do it is that when they give a license for urbanization, so in that only they put conditions that at least 25%, 20% houses have to be made in the affordable sector, wherein the demand has not been there for the reason that the easier credit is also required for the people who are purchasing it. Somebody who's just entered into, somebody who's a first purchaser who's never purchased a house, for him it's difficult to put all the money on the upfront level. For him, the subvention-based model, which was there for 1 crore flat or 50 lakh flat, MIGs needs to be there in a more lucrative number, maybe a subvention of 3% to 4% for such people, and in even longer period. In those people who are buying for the house for the first time, it is important not to have any psychological pressure. Generally, home loans are 6-7 years. They need to have 10-12 years. So I believe affordable housing will be a house for all is a function of affordability, ease to purchase, and less stress to purchase. Because anybody across moving in the first level of moving from village to a city for jobs, etc., would always see that there is no pressure on his spending by virtue of purchasing house. So increment in the period of the credit and subvention increment will make it so easy for anyone to purchase that house for all agenda of the country and government will get easier achieved in the shorter period of time.
Okay.
In terms of education and skilling, we've seen a lot of focus in the review also by the Chief Economic Advisor. He says there has to be more focus in terms of integration between skilling, education, entrepreneurship. But he also says that the NEP is work in progress, so it is focusing on that. Yet when he looks ahead into the future challenges, this again, he says the skilling gaps is a future challenge going forward, needs reforms. So do you think that this could also be a focus area?
So Skill India has led to definition of all the processes in all manufacturing by calling it to be a NOS. And on the other side, the national education policy is building up that concept of people to be educated on skill concepts even rather than only being educated in the...
Also, there's a digital skill platform also that has been recently launched.
I see next now will be an implementation of NOS concept from Skill India to the education pattern even.
Absolutely, and as we know, the countdown is almost getting over. It's 11 in the morning. The time for the House proceedings to begin in Lok Sabha. All eyes on Finance Minister of India, Nirmala Sitharaman, as she presents her 6th consecutive budget, 4th paperless budget.